So today we're going to be looking at the Yanmega deck. I have sped up a bit of footage, just see what you think about this one. Obviously, when doing the 30-minute videos, I thought it can sometimes just be a lot. But if you do prefer them, then leave it in the comments. I might be able to just kind of go with certain zones of this rather than necessarily showing you full gameplay. We're going to kind of see what's what, basically. But this deck is going to be quite nice in getting things done quickly. And to be honest, the very first match was a interesting one to see how we can take out a Darkrai. Then obviously we've got the Weavile, and then he also throws in a bit of Farfetch'd. I mean, I get what he's trying to do. Obviously this deck has been very metaful. We have got it on the channel if you want to try it out, but it is weak to grass. We've got the Executor line, we've got Yanmega EX, and then we've got the Pokeball, we've got Professor's Research, and a mixture of trainers. Erica, Giovanni, Leaf, Cyrus, that is an absolute cheat code, and then also Sabrina. So basically with this deck in general, it is one of them ones that just works. It's quick. Obviously, Executor is a great starter if you're obviously trying to get him out instantly, because naturally, he's that sort of kind of Pokemon that just hits very quickly and is able to do the most amount of damage as quick as you can, really. Second turn in, second evolution, 1 energy, and then we can build up Yanmega. Because it's kind of the only thing is with Yanmega, he does need the 3 different energies on him. He is colorless, which is always nice, and he will discard a random energy from the Pokemon, and that's it. But it does 120 with the 140 HP as well. It's a very hard hitter for just a stage 1. And guaranteed damage as well. It's not necessarily like how Executor can do the 80 with 1 energy, but with obviously Yanmega, he can do the 120 guaranteed. So using the Executor out first to obviously try and do some chip damage, get as much as possible, and this is the Cyrus in play as well. Absolutely outrageously good. If that paid off, that would have been incredible to get that heads. But it does the 60 regardless because of the extra weakness, which really plays into this deck's strength. And once you get into Yanmega against this deck, you're pretty much golden because he is just an absolute boss when it comes to it. Mainly the thing is you do need to have a pretty good setup. I feel like I got really lucky with the setup of this deck because obviously we got the Executor in. Yanmega got to his energy before he managed to take it out. We did have a second execute, say that right, in there as well, but Yanmega was ready. I don't think I even needed, did I need that? I think I did. Let's have a look. 150. Yeah, so to be honest, the Giovanni did do the extra 10, but I was doing the 140 regardless. That was the big win. And this is the big thing here with the setup of it. Obviously, Magikarp coming in. And to be honest, if you do manage to get the Executor in as quick as possible, you can take him out instantly. And he does end up conceding, which is very nice. And that's kind of the play of it. If you can get it set up instantly, you are pretty much guaranteed to kind of start doing some damage very quickly. And there's a lot of decks at the moment that are requiring a little bit of work in it. So obviously here you can see we get the Executor in, and to be honest, he wasn't having any of it. He knows full well that I could take him out in that one move, and once you've gone past that, it's very difficult. If he hasn't got the Gabite in, it doesn't kind of work there either. Then we go again. We've obviously got the Execute in there as well, and we want to go with the Executor. You sometimes will have to go with the Yanma, and you can move him out for 1, or you could obviously go with the attack, depending on who you're going against. When we look at the decks that are kind of prone to it, I must admit fire decks were very difficult to go against, especially ones that attacked instantly, whereas the Moltres, you've got a time to set yourself up a little bit. Obviously with Yanmega doing the 120, it's a good amount of damage, like even if your weakness is it. But if he does come up against a Charizard, an Arcanine, and they are fully powered, there is very little room for error at that point. So making sure that you're utilizing everything's always good. In terms of tools that we could use, Rocky Helmet could be a potential, obviously with Executor, we'll get it right again. If you use the Rocky Helmet, it could stop maybe some chip damage, so you have to wait for the big ones. Obviously then we have got the Cape that gives you 20 HP. They are decent enough. I must admit we haven't really used Cyrus at all before this deck. He has been absolutely brilliant. That ability to be able to bring in a damaged Pokemon is outrageously good. It's very difficult to go on bench Pokemon now. If you've obviously got, for instance, 1 point to go, or you've got an EX that's damaged on the bench and you've got 2 points to go, it's just brilliant that you can choose. So it's a very, very interesting one, to say the least. Obviously, I would have been more interested if it was kind of a random pick, as in, for instance, if you was kind of got 2 damaged on the bench, it just picks randomly, but you can obviously choose. That would have been the kind of bit where it's like, okay, it could be worth it, but most of the time you only really see 1 damaged Pokemon on the bench, and you get to pick it. So it's one of them that you cannot escape from. It's why I always have 1 in there. Sabrina, obviously a very good one as well, but with all of the heavy hitters, especially against something like this deck, if you had 2 Palkias, if you obviously had Vaporeon, and then also Articuno, the Sabrina's kind of rendered a little bit useless unless you're trying to stop a move. But then with Leaf in there, with X-Speed in there, you just don't know what they've got. And to be honest, it really is just to the point where you've got to set yourself up to not fail with this. This deck obviously was a lot more difficult. We've managed to get the Yanmega in, but we did obviously go ahead and put a second energy on Executor, which really stuffed up the chances. I slipped, I put it on Executor, and it meant that I couldn't attack in this zone, which was very, very frustrating to say the least. But I must admit, this deck is one of my more favoured decks. I think most definitely when it comes to it, it's a very good one to go against the Darkrai, which is always perfect. Other than that, it's just a very quick hitter. Yes, I do like the Celebi deck, but there was a lot of RNG base there. That's obviously with Seviper as well. Or Cyperia, I think it is. Executor has always been a fan favourite of this deck. It's just brilliant. We did manage to get the concede on that one as well. And this is why I kind of like this format of doing these. Maybe I'd chop and change it and maybe show you just the attacks instead. Or at least how we kind of manoeuvre our moves to kind of go against it. Let me know what you would like to see in terms of the highlights of the battles maybe, rather than necessarily the full frontal of it. Trying to get the clips to show you what the good and bad bits are of the deck as such. Maybe we do a kind of commentary based around it and keep it like 10 minutes, if that, maybe even 8, just to get to the points, and then kind of go over the deck. We'll go over the moves, how you want to utilize them with examples, things that you might run into, for instance, their weaknesses, and how you could possibly get around them, because realistically I think the only weakness you've got here, obviously with Yanmega it's going to be electric, with Executor it's going to be fire, so you have got that maneuver you could go around. Obviously Yanmega's got to have the free energies, so trying to get him into battle against a fire deck, you've just got to be quick with it. There's been times that we did 2 or 3 of these battles and we just ended up with a lot of basic Pokemon, no stage 1, not being able to do anything, and sometimes that happens. You're going to get it with any deck. If you've got a Gyarados in there, I played someone, his last card was the Gyarados, didn't manage to pick it up. He must have shuffled his deck a dozen times and he still didn't get that one Gyarados that he's clearly put in his deck, and it meant that the Magikarp just couldn't do anything, and eventually you just chipped away at it. So it is possible. And then when you add a stage 2 evolution line, if you've got obviously Cyperia, if you've got a Charizard, a Blastoise, there's not a lot you can do if you don't get the RNG to get it in your deck. You can obviously have different tools to be able to try and get it as quick as possible, but there is a possibility that it just does not turn up on some matches. But we did manage to get a lot of wins. I thought this deck was very consistent with it, and that's kind of another thing. I try and do quite a few matches. We've just currently done a Gallade one, and trying to just do a big bulk of matches, try and get to like 10 to see how many we truly win, and then take it down to roughly, is it my fault? Is it the RNG? What's the actual kind of sitch on it? And I would always love to see if you improve these decks. I've kind of scoured over a few people's decks and kind of how they do it. The comment section, if you've got any extra abilities or extra trainer cards you'd rather add, maybe you'd kind of drop down one Executor to from 2 to 1 and then add something else into it. It's always a possibility that the deck is not perfectly polished. Maybe I drop down a Giovanni because I don't really need 2 and add in something like a Dawn and add one of the bench kind of energies, so I could bring Executor down and then put Yanmega in, give him 1 energy as well. It's always a possibility, and obviously that would require a little bit of extra help with obviously a Leaf and then maybe a second energy if I've not put anything in. It's always a move that I'm willing to try, or even throwing in a cape or a Rocky Helmet like we said with the tools as we go into the second expansion and then into more than likely the mini expansion that we'll get in like a month or so, there's going to be a lot of cards to put in and kind of loads of combinations you can use. So if there's an updated list, I could come back with this one and try it again with the updated deck, and if it is enough changed. Obviously, changing a trainer or obviously a supporter, I'm not really going to do a whole new video for that unless it changed it completely and I didn't think about something. Maybe adding in a second Cyrus could have been an option here. So in terms of what we've got, there's a lot of wins in this deck. I think it is one of them decks that just works really, really well. I was looking at Yanmega. I'm kind of looking at all the EXs to start with. We've obviously said we've done Gallade. I still need to do a bit of Dialga. I've kind of come up against them, and I just like doing the battles to see what people actually do. And I'm seeing a lot of these bug decks. I'm very rarely ever see Butterfree, but we saw a Bulbasaur in this one. We also saw something else that escapes me, which will pop up in a second, that actually this one, Shaman it is, that obviously does a heal damage, it heals 10 every time, so it's got a nice ability, and then trying to work them in, even then looking at the Magnezone, and there is so many new Pokemons that will add, or new cards should I say, that will add to a previous deck as well, so we'll be going over as many as possible. This deck in itself is one of the ones that I thought should be shared as quick as possible, because I've been seeing a lot of Darkrai. It has been everywhere. It's great against Mewtwo. It's a very quick deck, and I must admit, Grass is at the minute the one thing that stops it very quickly, but you've got to get it set up right. Even the Grass weakness is still very difficult to go against it unless you get the perfect setup. It is that good if they get the setup as well. Darkrai doing the 20 with obviously the Dark Energy, Weavile doing the 70 every time, then throwing in a Greninja if they've done that as well. Plus then there's so much other kind of angles that you can go with it. Other than that, I think this would be kind of how I would do this deck for me. Obviously going with the doubles on everything. I don't know what else I'd personally add to it in terms of Pokemon in itself. This kind of battle was just very clean and consistent. It's grass against grass. We got very lucky with Executor with flips, and then obviously Yanmega was kind of just waiting to appear at some point. But it just shows that even though it's a Yanmega feature, Executor can steal the spotlight as well. It just does incredible to be able to get the attacks off, to be able to then start to power up my Yanmega whenever it was coming, and literally every time get the double, there's another one gone. Second point, it brings in the Bulbasaur. We could then bring the Yanmega in if we really wanted to, if we had it obviously on the bench. So obviously it's got Bulbasaur. We are one heads away from being able to do it, and sometimes you can just get lucky and get heads after heads after heads, which is always nice. I was having a quick look at the Butterfree because never really seen it. There's Yanmega, get the attack off, manage to get the heads, and the game is pretty much over. It's a fantastic one, and then also having the Erica for the 50 heal is a very nice appeal to the deck. But let me know your thoughts.